Go. We are now live, and I am. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Workvine 209 Live. I am Eric.
And I'm Linda. Thank you for joining us today here at Workvine 209. We're located out here in Tracy, California. We're a co-working space for remote workers from startups to large companies. And in our pivot, we're doing these live shows to help the listeners with whatever they need, with tools they need to help their business grow. And we have someone spectacular today on our live show. I'm going to let Eric introduce him.
Yes, so we have this guy. He's a world-renowned top speaker, NCAA rowing champion, U.S. officer of the Marine Corps, I believe, the corporate vice president, NBA world traveler, inspirational. We've met him. We've talked to him. He's given us advice on Workvine. I mean, he has some spectacular information that he wants to share today, and I'm glad that he's a part of our Workvine 209 live show. Stay tuned for Chris Steely, who's going to be dynamic. Yes. And I want to welcome you guys all to our Workvine 209 show. And let's go ahead and start off by just bringing Chris in. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
Woo-hoo, I'm enthusiastic to meet me. That's great. Good intro.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. You have so much down here, right? You've done so many things, and it's like, man, how do you put all that in to an intro within the time that we have? But it's exciting to have you, Chris, on our show, and welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here, Eric. Good to see you as well, Linda.
Yes. Hi. Yeah. So, Chris, I know we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. You've done some top business coaching, and you've worked with a lot of different organizations and businesses to help them grow. And, right now we're in a very challenging time in the economy. And we want to talk about the big reset. And what does that really mean? I know we spoke about, the reset and how we pivot, and this is one of our pivots. But let's talk a little bit about the big reset.
Right. That's great. So it's a term that's kind of become almost cliche these days, and it references the reality of our condition. There's a lot of words describing what's going on these days, which instill different perspectives in people's hearts. There's the whole, recession, depression, economic, downturn, and all this other stuff. The word apocalypse is coming up.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the word apocalypse, the definition of the word apocalypse is the unveiling. It's an unveiling, if you think about it. So we kind of are experiencing that. If you look at our history, I mean, we've all been around the block. We've been around at least a couple decades. So we've seen the evolution of our society. And it's been interesting to see what it's becoming, And I consider myself to kind of be a crusader type. I'm all about doing it for the right reasons and the goodness and everything. And it's almost like up until recently, things have been kind of falling apart. There's been so much division, if you want to look at whether it be politics or whatever. And I think that we've become so extreme that there is now an opportunity to kind of reboot, reset, right? So in that context, that's what we're all experiencing. And one of the nice things about this, guys, is that we're all in this together, right? This is a global pandemic. We have not experienced anything like this in our lifetimes. The last time anything like this occurred was in 1918 with the Spanish flu, and that was a pandemic. And if hopefully we've learned lessons from that. But now we have technology, right? Now we have the internet, right? Now we have opportunities to be able to expand and grow, and ideally collaborate more effectively. So from my perspective, we're resetting, and what we get a reset to is our choice going forward. you know?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I know everybody's probably like, when can we reset? I mean, when you talk about reset, it's almost like a reboot, made me think about computer. When it starts dragging and things start happening, it's like, hey, we got to shut this thing off and restart it and start over fresh, So
Yeah.
good, Chris.
And then the key
So,
is work. I mean, you guys are all about working, right? You're creating an environment for people to work in. And I mean, that's what I'm about. I'm all about business, right? So now we get to make work in a
yeah,
socially isolated scenario with masks and awareness of the condition. And we get to do it effectively. And we get to do it, with a level of common sense as we
yeah,
come out of our caves, right? I call this social isolation we've been experiencing for the past couple months is we kind of went into our caves.
yeah,
And hopefully, by the way, we optimized that time when we were in our caves. Maybe we got to know our families better. Maybe we
yeah,
got to know ourselves better. Maybe we did the work on us that we get to do, while we're, I guess call it sequestered. But now as we come out of our caves and the light's a little shiny as you come out of the cave, but it's a light. It's a brilliant light. And now we actually get to use the new tools we've got, whether it be virtual platforms, new perspectives on how we're running things. And right now, by the way, we're going through kind of a double whammy right now where there's a societal rebellion happening, where there's riots in the streets these days based on injustice and everything that's happening. So there's just this unique energy that we get to not necessarily exacerbate or expand, but we get to stop and breathe into it and, be the leaders that we are in business with, establishing the new rules of engagement around what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. And that's what this reset's allowing us to do, is an opportunity to pause, reflect, take a couple deep breaths, and determine what matters most to us, whether it be our families, our businesses, our purpose, and be more effective now, be more efficient. One of the things that's been happening with the downturn in the economy is we've gotten used to being austere, and a lot of people are cutting back on their budgets, which I advise them to do because you have to do that. But you also have to keep oxygen in the tank. So we become conditioned to do more with less, which is all about leverage. And these are the things that I've been teaching for a long time now. And it's almost like we're being forced to become more efficient, more effective, more productive with less, So
that's a really valid point, and I think this whole thing has taken a lot of people out of their comfort zone, which can be a good thing, because a lot of people whose grass was long and backyards weren't landscaped, they might have been so busy they didn't have the time. But it's allowing us to create something a little different, something new, spending more time with family, right? Learning how to do things outside of the box. Even when we opened up Workvine, we had a vision. We're going to work with entrepreneurs and create an atmosphere and, collaborations. And now, for the last 2 months, we've sat here by ourselves. And so we've created this platform to be able to pivot and show people that, change is good. Right. Change is good. Think outside the box, do something different. And I always, tell people, if you give an opportunity, give it a shot. Right. People come and say, I want to start a business all the time. How do I do it? What do I do? Well, it's a great time to start writing those ideas and those strategies down to get ready for that reset. When things open back up, you're already in a good position.
Along with the reset, I think it's also reevaluate. So you reset and then you reevaluate. And like you said, turning off the lights or, conserving and cleaning out old stuff. And then, with the reevaluate, then, it's revive.
Yeah.
So now what do we do to revive? So talk to us about what business leaders need to do to optimize the revive in their business.
I love it. Call it a revival, a business revival, if that's what you would call it. That's great. I love the words you're using. These are great. I love that you're painting pictures with these words that are really resonating.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to is as leaders in business, it's really important that, like as I say, we got to stop and again, reflect on why we do what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's where it kind of starts with is kind of self-reflection, and as the leaders in business, we are the leaders. We are the human beings that are out there doing the best we can with what we've got. So self-awareness in that context is important. And as I kind of reflected on, it's one of the things I've been doing is I've been socially isolated here in my home office in this studio. I've been spending the past couple months reflecting as well. And, determining what my pivot's going to be. And ultimately, I mean, what it comes down to, and this is what we all get to do as leaders, is we get to be more empathetic. This virus we've been experiencing is a human-based dis-ease. It's throwing us all off balance, right? So we got to be empathetic and understanding and compassionate toward the reality of our condition. I think that's what's going to make the difference for businesses these days. If you're a leader that's being perceived as somebody who's aware of themselves and as well as of their situation and of why you're in business and what the purpose of your business is, that's going to make all the difference. So, and we all know, I mean, we've talked about this before. These days, especially these days, people do business with people they know and trust, right? So another perspective that this reset is causing is that it's really going to spotlight the untrustworthy ones that are out there just, saying, hey, it's all about me, pick me, we're the best business and everything. No, it's not about you. Yeah. It's about the people that you serve, right? So being ethical, and telling the truth, and making sure that you're competent in what you do as opposed to, hey, I'm just going to make money for the sake of making money. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with making money. I like making money. I love profit. But if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's really kind of got to be spotlighted and highlighted, and, we talked about this before, back to self-awareness, we're all good people. I know you too as wonderful, authentic human beings. At the same time, there's things in our lives that are kind of holding us back, and it happens to all of us, happens to the best of us, and I like to reference, as we talked before, about the shadow. Oh, look at that. There's my shadow. Just kind of look at that. Isn't that great? Yeah. We all have a shadow, right? Yes. And no matter, as the light becomes more brilliant, the shadow gets cast more vividly, right? So think about that metaphor. We're all here doing wonderful, brilliant things. But at the same time, we can't help it. It's a physical reality. You can see the shadow. It just popped up because the light became brighter. So that metaphor, it's our responsibility as we become enlightened and self-aware. What do we have to do to make sure that we confront that shadow essence, that might be holding us back, And over the past couple months, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for us to kind of check in on, how effective am I being? I mean, do I have my priorities straight? There's one of the schools of thought these days is as human beings, we all have addictive tendencies to some extent, right? There's chemical addictions, there's workaholism, there's things that we use to escape, and that's a shadow essence, right? So, and I've got it just like anybody else does, right? Fortunately, I've got control over things. I've got self-control, which is something else we all get to have. And how are we doing in that context, So it's important to, while we're in our caves during this time is, using back to the metaphor of the addiction, is to detoxify to some extent, not literally, but metaphorically. What do we have to detoxify of as we confront that shadow, which is always going to be there, and realize who we are, why we are, what's holding us back. And this metaphor applies to business as well. In your business, what's stopping you in business from advancing and being as effective as you can and being competitive? Well, we got to determine that. And this is the time to do that, I think.
Yeah, that's really good.
This is the time to do it. You're so right. You said something earlier about the light. And, like when you wake up in the morning and you open your eyes and your eyes have to adjust to the light because you've been in this dark or coming out of a dark room into a lighted room, it's that adjustment, that time period. But eventually you get used to the light, right? So it's kind of like with the business, we've been in this dark, in our caves for so long with COVID, and now we're coming out of the cave and now our eyes are adjusting to the light. And so, that's what a lot of business people owners are doing is they're getting adjusted to the light and they're adapting and then they're pivoting. And so, it's that transition from dark to light, and then, in the shadow, and, I'm painting the picture with you.
Yeah.
So,
right. But that makes sense.
That's-
I mean, if you think about that, it's like, I love it, Linda, because your eyes are becoming conditioned to the light, right? And when you come out and the light's bright, it's, you squint, and eventually, your eyes become conditioned. Let that be, again, back to the metaphor of, we all get to condition ourselves
yes.
to be able to confront the realities that are facing us, right?
Yes.
Right.
And I'm seeing Carlos here on the screen. Do you want to comment toward Carlos's question?
Yeah. Go ahead. And what are the self-control coping mechanisms you use?
So self-control coping mechanisms. So I love this. It falls perfectly into this context. So first of all, we all have responsibilities in life. There's a concept out there where a lot of people in our world, I call it below the line. They operate from what's called below the line because they're casting blame, or they're making excuses. Hey, my business is successful because of the economy, or because of the pandemic, or and maybe they're in denial. It's like, oh no, there is no disease, we're going to be fine. It's a level of denial, and I think a lot of people operate from that place because as a human being, we feel comfortable in that space. One of the things that I foster is, I call it championship level performance, is operating from what we call as above the line, and that's taking ownership. And Eric and Linda, you guys are owners of your business. Take ownership for your business. But even if you're not a business owner, take ownership of your responsibility in a business. Take responsibility for where you are. I mean, a lot of people are shirking responsibility. It's like, oh, well, my business is what it is and I'm responsible for it, and it is in the condition that it's in. We all get to take responsibility for that, and we got to be conscious of that. And again, back to championship level performance. Champions love being held accountable because that's how you perform. That's how you win the game. So it's those components of ownership and accountability and responsibility. And as you're faced with that, and you're faced with a condition that, nobody said it was going to be easy, folks, right? But we get to condition ourselves to be stronger, whether it be physical strength, making sure that we're healthy, especially with this COVID virus flying around. We got to be physically fit. We get to be mentally fit, and as you're coping with these concepts of, well, with all this stuff hitting me and I feel compelled to fall below the line and start making excuses and everything, as a champion, when you pull yourself above the line, it's important to be aware of what is holding you back. So the key in the context of coping is, what am I coping with, right? Like we're all really good at something, right? We all have strengths. So understand we get to wield those strengths with competence and confidence and capability, right? And in the context of coping, it's a reality, and we get to cope with the reality that we're in. But the imperative is we could determine what we have to cope with. If it's coping with addiction, potentially, right? Like for me in my life, I was raised as a child in an alcoholic family. My mother was an alcoholic, and it was an addictive scenario. And she smoked, right? Smoking cigarettes, addicted to cigarettes, right? So it was an addictive scenario. And after she passed away, I got a lot of psychotherapy to understand, how is that influencing me, right? And how am I coping? And I've made powerful decisions in my life to not smoke, to not drink, not be addicted to things. But that's just me, I'll challenge us all to reflect on our condition, So in the context of coping mechanisms, I think what it comes down to is the first thing we get to do, it all starts with gratitude, right? I mean, realizing that here we are in life, right? I've lived several decades. You guys, look like you've been around for a couple decades and everything. What a blessing! What a blessing you've got to be a human being on this planet at this time, right? So coming first of all from a place of gratitude and just being grateful immediately, and then of course the condition. Okay, wow, so this is the condition. And that heart of gratitude really helps us all cope so much more effectively, right? So coping with that from a heart of gratitude, and then of course understanding what our strengths are and applying those strengths back to that why and the purpose with, again, competence and confidence and capability. That's a coping mechanism in itself, because that allows you to be able to confront and be resilient as the storm hits you, as things hit you, and you end up being an overcomer. And you can call that coping. I call it rising above, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. That's what I'm hearing is you went through that coping mechanism, but then after, while you made it a conscious effort not to smoke, you were rising above. So not only coping, but then taking the second step and rising above coping.
yeah, it's self-control, you know. Well, yeah, get out, you guys. You know me. I love metaphors, right? And there's so many metaphors. I was a Marine Corps logistics officer. You know, I'm a warrior, right? You know, I know how to fight, right? But I'm not a fighter. I'm more of a peacekeeper type guy. But I know how to fight. You know, I know how to be manage the logistics of the United States Marine Corps. It's big, you know, and that conditioned me to be stronger and to be able to be more competent and capable as I fight the good fight, right? And you know, and that, by the way, that term comes from the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. If anybody hasn't read it, read that book. And it's perfect for the times we're in right now, as we get to fight the good fight, and we get to determine what fight we're going to fight, right? So,
wow, that's powerful, man. That's really good stuff. I mean, you know, the coping mechanism. You know, no more excuses. Realizing, taking responsibility. You know, and when you talked about your mom smoking it, and it made me think about my mom, and you know, same, you know, she smoked a lot of years and she passed away from cancer, and you know, it was how do I deal with that? How do I adjust? Right? It was so hurtful. You know, where my coping mechanism was relying on God, right? And I felt like, man, I have to anchor myself in with who my source is to really strengthen me through this time. And so I think that a lot of people may have different type of mechanisms that they use that's going to help them through whatever the situation they may be going through. And so, you know, trying to find that right one for you, I think, is being around the right people that can help you, creating a circle of influence that can guide you, that can give you the tools that you need. Like you, I mean, we met you. It's been about maybe a few months, man. And it seemed like we know you for a long time, but it's like, man, this guy got some really cool stuff. I mean, you know, even though we're doing a live show, people may say, oh, they know this guy or they talk to him. But I mean, you're planting seeds in people and individuals for that seed to begin to grow, to be nurtured, to make changes in their lives. And I mean, I'm really excited. I like what you're saying. We maybe have to, you know, do another show. I mean, we're going to be doing a lot of other things. But anyway,
I love talking about this kind of stuff, and and I love reflecting, just like we're doing this. And by the way, this is unscripted. I didn't know what we were talking about. We talked about the big reset, and look where the rabbit holes we're going down. This is great. And I want to make a comment too about the spirit, right? As human beings, we are spiritual beings first, and business is the ultimate spiritual game, because business is all about value delivery and value exchange, right? Absolutely. So we get to realize that as well, right? It's a wonderful opportunity to be grateful for that condition and resonate effectively. So, what rabbit holes do you guys want to go down? Let's go down some rabbit holes. How much time we got?
Yeah, we're good. We still got a few minutes, man.
I do want to say that, you know, having this, we're associating ourselves with positive people that make a change. And that's what I encourage other people to do, is get around people that can help you grow. There was a saying that if you want to be a millionaire, hang around with millionaires. You know, you want to hang around with people that are going to put, you know, some positive energy into your life. You know, be the solution and not the problem to whatever you're experiencing. Even, you know, right now it's so heavy. Like, I was like, what are we going to talk about today because of what's going on in the world? And, you know, it affects us, you know, personally, you know, of what's going on, you know, with the riots and, you know, the protest. And, you know, I have kids out there that are protesting, and I got to tell them, hey, you know what, do it the right way. And they are, you know, so I'm proud of them that they're doing it a peaceful, you know, and they're speaking up. And so I was thinking, like, wow, what can we talk about today that can be relevant to the listeners out there that are experiencing this heaviness that's going on? and kind of related to business. I don't know how to do that, but you know, we're still in business, even though what's going on in the world, we're still engaging with positive people, and we're still, you know, speaking up for what's right, and you know, and still having a voice, and not letting what's going on with the world, you know, take over and devastate our business, you know. So staying positive, staying around people that are positive like you, and doing metaphors to help people cope with what's going on in the world today, you know, that's what we need. That's what we need.
And you guys, I got to tell you, you are an example right now. By the way, you want to talk about what you're doing right now is you're providing goodwill and a service to the community through this digital platform that's being streamed live on Facebook and YouTube right now. And you're doing this it in the context of business development. I mean, it's public relations. You are doing a public relations initiative, and it's wonderful. We should all be doing more stuff like this, because look at what you're doing. You're serving people. You're giving value. At the same time, you know, I'd like to think that as you're talking and you're engaging, people are going to say, yeah, those work fine folks, you know, they really are the real deal. And why is that? Because you're caring and you're giving and you're being authentic and you're being real. That's and you guys are an example of that during the big reset. So everybody watch. This is the example right here.
Thanks, Chris. That's cool, man.
And you're a part of it too.
Yeah, you are.
You know, we invited people that we know would make an impact. You know, we want to make an impact, and we associate with people that want to make an impact in people's lives. You said something earlier, you know, that it's about helping people. You know, and it's not, you know, making money is good. We all want to make money, but we also want to do a good service and help people. You know, our success is seeing other businesses become successful through our platform or through our membership here at Workvine, or whatever we can do to help another business grow, or help somebody out of a rabbit hole. They're stuck in, you know, the darkness in the cave, and helping them see the light and helping them adjust to the light. You know, that's what we're all about personally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
preaching in a minute.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm talking to you guys, is you have a legitimate business that's necessary, that's important. And I think it's a great business model. I mean, you're just, remember we talked about in our last discussion is, you're building community, right? And that's what we need more of. We need back to collaboration and working together, back to the choice we have. We could go back to our old ways where it was all about, you know, hey, you know, profit at any cost. And, you know, again, like I said, nothing wrong with profit. I just want to qualify that, but doing it for the wrong reasons. And I think the opportunity we have now is to do what you guys are doing, setting that example of collaboration, community, creating a facility for people to come to be able to engage. And then relating to the public more effectively, and determining how we're going to potentially work together as well. I think that's, you know, as the tide is rising, all ships rise with it, right? And as we're coming out of our caves and the economy is going to recover, if we're the boat that's on the water, because we've, back to the sailing metaphor, right? We cast off the bow lines. We're sailing right now, and it's kind of a storm right now. Are we competent sailors as we navigate our seagoing vessels? And how, as the tide is rising, are we out there with other sailboats? And we are. Basically, a business is a metaphor. A sailboat's a metaphor for a business, right? We're out there doing business. Some boats are bigger than others. You know, I love the picture of the San Francisco Bay. There's small boats out there. There's freaking oil tankers out there. You know, and your boat is out there on that bay. How are you interfacing with other boats? Are you helping one another? Are you staying out of each other's way? Are you collaborating? You know, it's all about respect in this new economy that we're faced with, you know?
Yeah.
Man, that's powerful.
I'm going to ride this wave. I'm riding the wave, you know, until the wheels fall off. I don't know. That's a car.
until the mast cripples or something. I don't know.
Yeah, until the mast cripples up. Yeah. So I know we have several listeners out there, people who are viewing. I know that I put your website, the GPS Business Group, for some of those who want to reach out and see a little bit more about what Chris does. You can also contact him too. That's his email. And I didn't even get to mention, you know, the book. I don't know. You've probably written more than just one book, I'm sure. but the GPS for success. I mean, that I think says it all. So for those of
and
you,
by the way, that book was an anthology. I got invited about 10 years ago actually to write it with Stephen R. Covey, who's since passed, and then John Gray, who's the Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus guy. I know these guys personally, and Les Brown. I met Les Brown in 1996 in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he's been my mentor ever since. You know, I got his cell phone number on my phone. I can reach out to him anytime. The guy, he's got a heart of gold, and I know the man personally. And I got to write a book with these guys. And you can actually go to that website and download a chapter of the book for free. The chapter that I wrote is called "Inspiring Your Possibilities." And I understand, Eric, that you read that chapter, maybe, or.
You know what? I can't remember. I don't think so, but I looked on there. But,
I know you referenced it earlier, but anyway, some good stuff out there. Some good content around perspectives around everything we're talking about. And you're right. I mean, I'm published in other ways as well. I've got a YouTube channel, and there's a virtual book that I wrote that's featured on YouTube as well. Oh, and by the way, another great way to connect, and I know we haven't talked about this yet, but is LinkedIn. Folks, if you're in business, LinkedIn. Get a LinkedIn profile, connect with all of us, the three of us on LinkedIn. Yes. And it's a great platform to exchange value. And I've written articles and I'm published, and I love to connect with people on LinkedIn because, again, these are all mechanisms for value exchange, right?
Yeah, that's good. So those of you listening, you want to connect with Chris, there's his website. This is his email information. And one last thing, you know, we ask, you know, all of our live guests, you know, to leave the show with something impactful for the listeners. I mean, maybe it's one word, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's something you learned in the past. What do you have for our listeners, Chris?
I think the biggest thing from my perspective is I'll leave everybody with is back to awareness. What's holding you back? You know, only you can answer that question. Because the world is our oyster now. As we come out of our caves, I've heard it called the big land grab. It's like a gold rush, right? What's holding you back? And that's what you get to do, is determine what that is. And you and only you can determine that. And again, it comes with confronting that shadow and facing that shadow, but at the same time, understanding who you are, why you are, what your purpose is. And I love to work with people to help ferret all that out, become more effective in business. So, boom.
Boom! We're going to leave you guys with that. What's holding you back? You're the only one to know.
Yes. Well, actually, I want to say most of the time, what's holding people back is themselves. Sometimes it's yourself that's holding you back from your potential. And I believe that, you know, tap into his coaching, Chris's coaching, because maybe he could help you move yourself out of your way to get to your potential, whatever that is.
Absolutely.
And so commit to being a master, right? Mastery is where it's at.
What was that?
Yeah. So in the context of, I was going to say, commit to being a master. You know, we think about masters, and, you know, success leaves clues, and there's people out there that have set a great example. So commit to mastering yourself with that self-awareness, understand what's holding you back, and realize that, you know, if you're on a plateau right now because we're in a COVID situation, or maybe we're struggling to stay above the line, knowing that it's part of the process, and what you get to do is find a path to get to the next level. And that's what mastery is committing to being the best you can be, and running your business with impact, you know, with having meetings that work, you know, fostering the discipline that all masters need to have to be able to do what it takes to be able to get from where you are now to where you can be. So anyway, we can just keep going. But again, that's what I'll leave everybody with. If that's what you want to leave everybody with now. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
That's great. Great stuff. Thank you, Chris, for being a part of the Eric and Linda Workvine 209 show. If you want to reach out to Chris, there's his website. I'll actually put his email and website in the chat for those of you who might have missed it. And you know what? We have a special show tomorrow. Actually, we had a show with Jazz and Keisha last week, and they had some technical difficulties. So they're going to be coming down to Workvine 209 tomorrow. And so stay tuned for that show. It's kind of not on our normal days, but we'll be doing another show tomorrow.
Yes, she did say, you know, that's why our co-working space is so relevant, because they're where they were, they didn't have a great internet connection. And she's like, this is why we need Workvine 209, is so that people like us that work remotely can, do it efficiently and effectively. So they're coming out here live in person at Workvine. So stay tuned for that.
All right. So hope you guys all learned something, and see you soon. Have a great
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Great talking to y'all. Wish my best to everybody. Keep it going. Keep up the great work.
Keep going. Thank you.
All right.